Sweden once ruled the Baltic. Now it exports ideas. With just over 10 million people, it has produced Volvo, IKEA, Ericsson, Spotify, H&M, ABBA, and technologies used far beyond Scandinavia. It built a generous welfare state without abandoning capitalism, stayed outside military alliances for generations, then joined NATO in 2024. But the system now faces harder questions about housing, migration, crime, industrial risk, and trust. So how did a cold, sparsely populated country turn forests, iron, education, and social compromise into global influence? Start with the map. Sweden stretches more than 1,500 kilometers from the Baltic coast to the Arctic north. Norway forms its long western border. Finland lies to the northeast, and Denmark sits across the narrow waters to the southwest. The country is large by European standards, but most people live in the south and center. Northern Sweden holds vast forests, rivers, hydropower, mineral deposits, and long distances between communities. Southern Sweden has milder weather, better farmland, denser transport, and the largest cities. Stockholm faces the Baltic. Gothenburg opens toward the North Sea. Malmö connects directly to Copenhagen through the Öresund Bridge. Sweden also contains more than 90,000 lakes, while forests cover most of the country. Lake Vänern is the largest in the European Union. These landscapes shaped settlement, transport, food, recreation, and national identity. They also help create a culture that treats access to nature as a public good rather than a luxury. Sweden's right of public access allows people to walk, camp, and gather berries on much privately owned land, as long as they respect homes, crops, and the environment. This landscape is not just beautiful, it is an economic system. Forests supplied timber, paper, furniture, chemicals, and export income. Rivers powered early industry. Iron, ore from the north, supported steel and engineering. Ports connected a small domestic market to the rest of Europe. That small market became an advantage. Swedish companies learned early that survival required international customers. But Sweden was not always the peaceful welfare state people recognize today. In the late Middle Ages, Sweden belonged to the Kalmar Union with Denmark and Norway. In 1523, Gustav Vasa broke away and built a stronger monarchy. By the 17th century, Sweden had become a major European power, controlling Finland and territories around the Baltic. The empire did not last. The Great Northern War weakened Sweden, Russia rose, and Sweden lost much of its territory. Finland was ceded to Russia in 1809. A later union with Norway ended peacefully in 1905. The lesson was not that national power no longer mattered. It was that military expansion was too expensive for a small population. Sweden gradually redirected state capacity toward administration, education, infrastructure, industry, and trade. It stayed out of both world wars and later followed military non-alignment. Yet Sweden was never defenseless. During the Cold War, it maintained a capable military, a large defense industry, and quiet cooperation with Western countries. Then Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine changed the calculation. Sweden joined NATO in March 2024, ending roughly 2 centuries outside formal military alliances. Its territory, airspace, defense industry, and the island of Gotland became more important to security in the Baltic. That shift reveals a larger Swedish habit. When old assumptions stop working, the system adapts. The economy works the same way. Sweden is often called socialist, but most businesses are privately owned. Markets set prices. Firms compete internationally. The country protects property rights and allows companies to fail. What makes Sweden unusual is how capitalism is combined with high taxes, public services, organized labor, and social insurance. Exports are central. A small population cannot support large industries alone, so companies must design for foreign markets. Volvo built a reputation around engineering and safety. Ericsson became a force in telecommunications. IKEA turned flat-pack logistics and Scandinavian design into a global retail model. Spotify transformed music distribution. H&M scaled fashion across continents. These companies share a pattern. Sweden rarely wins by being the cheapest producer. It combines engineering, design, branding, and global distribution. The labor market also works differently. Sweden does not depend on one national minimum wage set by law. Employers and unions negotiate wages and conditions through collective agreements across much of the economy. This can create stability, but only when organizations trust each other. That trust is one of Sweden's most valuable assets, and one of the hardest to rebuild when it weakens. High taxes finance much of the welfare state, but Swedish welfare is often misunderstood. It is not a world where every service is free and every person receives the same benefit. Public schools are tax-funded, and school meals are commonly provided without charge. Higher education generally does not charge tuition to Swedish citizens and eligible students from the European Union and related areas. Most students from outside those areas pay tuition. Healthcare offers broad public coverage, but patients may still pay fees for appointments, hospital care, and medicines. Annual caps limit many costs. Universal coverage does not mean zero personal expense. Parental policy is more distinctive. Parents can share 480 days of parental benefit for one child. Much of the payment is linked to income, while some days are paid at a lower fixed level. This is not only generosity, it is economic strategy. An aging country needs both parents to remain connected to work. Childcare, parental leave, and job protection help make that possible. But every benefit must be funded. Sweden's model works best when employment is high, taxes are collected, and citizens believe others follow the same rules. Welfare is not a free gift. It is a social contract with a large invoice. That contract does not remove daily pressure. Sweden has high incomes, but housing can be difficult, especially in Stockholm, Gothenburg, and Malmö. Regulated first-hand rental contracts may involve long waiting lists, so the younger residents and newcomers often depend on more expensive sublets. In Sweden, access to housing can depend less on salary than on patience. Work-life balance is another famous part of the Swedish image. Full-time work is commonly organized around a 40-hour week, while paid vacation and parental rights are strong. Flexible schedules are common in professional jobs, but healthcare, transport, education, and care services still face staffing pressure. Sweden's innovative reputation is more than branding. In 2025, it ranked near the top of the Global Innovation Index. The reason is not one brilliant inventor. It is a network connecting universities, companies, public research, digital infrastructure, investors, and international talent. The small home market again matters. A Swedish startup cannot become very large by selling only to Swedes. It must think internationally from the beginning. The social safety net may also reduce the personal cost of failure. Losing a job is still painful, but healthcare, education, and some income protection can make career changes less dangerous. Still, innovation comes with failure. Northvolt was once promoted as Europe's great hope for a domestic battery industry. It attracted huge investment and built its main plant in northern Sweden. But delays, rising costs, management problems, and weak execution overwhelmed the company, which filed for bankruptcy in Sweden in 2025. That collapse did not prove Sweden cannot build green industry. It proved that ambition and subsidies cannot replace execution. The green transition demands capital, technical skill, reliable supply chains, and time. Sweden's cultural influence follows the same outward-looking logic. ABBA made Swedish pop globally recognizable, but the deeper story includes songwriters, producers, studios, and digital platforms. Max Martin shaped international pop for decades. Spotify changed how the world listens. Why did so much global music come from such a small language community? Strong music education helped. English proficiency lowered barriers. Technology mattered. Most of all, the home market was too small, so Swedish artists learned to create for the world. The country's major cities represent different parts of this system. Stockholm is the political, financial, technology, and cultural center. Built across islands and waterways, It combines government, startups, universities, and corporate headquarters. Most Nobel Prizes are presented there, while the Peace Prize is awarded in Oslo. Gothenburg is more industrial. Its port is Sweden's largest, connecting factories to global markets. The city's identity is tied to shipping, engineering, and Volvo. Malmö tells a story of reinvention. Once heavily industrial, it is now linked to Copenhagen through the Øresund Bridge, creating a cross-border urban region. It has also faced sharper problems involving segregation, housing, and public safety. Those challenges have changed Sweden's national debate. Immigration expanded the workforce, added businesses and cultural energy, and offered refuge to people fleeing war. But rapid population change also exposed weaknesses in housing, schools, employment, and local integration. The public safety problem is real, but simple explanations are misleading. Swedish sexual offense statistics are shaped by legal definitions and recording practices, so direct international comparisons can distort reality. At the same time, gun violence linked to criminal networks increased significantly from the mid-2000s into the early 2020s. Researchers describe fragmented networks, neighborhood conflicts, drug markets, and a recruitment of younger offenders. Some teenagers have been used to carry out attacks for money or status. That is not the same as saying immigration automatically causes crime. The causes involve illegal markets, segregation, school failure, family instability, weak local institutions, and criminal recruitment. But rejecting simplistic blame does not mean ignoring the problem. Sweden's model depends on trust. When residents feel the state cannot guarantee safety or integration, politics becomes harder and more polarized. Northern Sweden presents another conflict. The region contains iron ore forests, hydropower, wind resources, and sites for new industrial projects. It is also part of Sápmi, the traditional homeland of the indigenous Sami people. Mining, energy, railways, and climate policy can collide with reindeer herding, ecosystems, and indigenous rights. Even Sweden's environmental strengths involve trade-offs. This is the Swedish model in its least romantic form. Every solution creates another negotiation. The country remains wealthy, innovative, and institutionally strong. It has advanced infrastructure, a skilled population, and an unusual ability to organize collective systems. But none of those advantages runs automatically. The welfare state needs high employment. Export companies need open markets. Innovation needs talent and capital. Integration needs housing, schools, and trust. NATO membership creates new security obligations. Green industry must survive commercial reality. Sweden stopped trying to dominate Europe with armies. Instead, it learned to influence the world through engineering, design, technology, music, and institutions. Its real power does not come from population size. It comes from combining natural resources, human skill, private enterprise, and public systems into ideas and products that travel. The question is whether Sweden can keep that combination working as society becomes older, more diverse, more polarized, and more exposed to global shocks. Is Sweden's model still a blueprint for the future, or is system becoming harder to sustain? If you enjoy seeing countries beyond the stereotypes, subscribe to Geologic.